All right, let's dive into a really fascinating and honestly pretty radical idea from our source material today. We're going to explore this concept that you aren't just a passenger in reality, but that you are, in a very real sense, mechanically selecting it every single moment.
So let's just start with the core claim right out of the gate. This isn't some feel-good spiritual metaphor. The idea being presented here is that this is a technical process, a mechanism that's been running completely unnoticed your entire life.
So what is this role you've been playing? The source material gives it a title, a reality indexer. Now, this isn't about being some fantasy creator who can just conjure things out of thin air. No, it's something much more subtle, much more technical than that. The best way to think about this is like a search engine, right? The entire internet, with all its billions of pages, already exists. When you type something into Google, it doesn't create new websites. It just selects and shows you one from the infinite library that already exists. Well, this model suggests your consciousness works the exact same way with reality. Okay, so how does this selection process actually happen? Well, it's not random. It follows this very simple, repeatable loop that's been running on autopilot in the background of your life since the day you were born.
Let's just walk through this chain of events. It all starts with perception. You see an image, you hear a word, instantly your brain assigns a meaning to it. Is this safe or dangerous, possible or impossible? That meaning then generates an emotion, which acts like a booster rocket, giving it priority. That feeling then drives your behavior. You either act or you freeze. And over time, that repeated behavior creates reinforcement, which stabilizes your environment until it becomes, just the way things are.
And this is why we don't even notice we're doing it. This kind of authorship, it doesn't feel like some godlike power. It just feels like consistency. The same problems, the same joys, the same patterns showing up over and over again. That consistency, that's the signature of your own indexing at work. So this brings us to a really crucial point. If this is a mechanism, then it has to have a language, right? An operating system. The source calls this symbolic mechanics and argues that if you can understand this language, you can go from being an unconscious indexer to a conscious one. And you can also start to see how this system can be influenced from the outside.
And this is where it gets really, really interesting. You ever wonder how certain groups, certain forces in the world just seem to be a step ahead of everyone else? Like they somehow know what's coming? Well, according to this theory, they aren't predicting anything, they're preloading it. The idea is, if you understand symbolic mechanics, you can strategically introduce symbols and narratives that influence what billions of individual reality indexers, people just like you and me, then render into their shared existence. Let's break down this toolkit. First up, symbols. We are not talking about simple decorations here. Think of them more like compressed zip files of meaning, designed to shoot right past your logical brain and hit you on an emotional level. Like how a single logo or a flag can make you feel something powerful without a single word being said? Next in the toolkit, rituals. Now, forget everything you think about superstition. In this framework, rituals are a kind of technology. They're a tool for synchronizing the attention of millions of people onto a single idea, a single point, which dramatically boosts the indexing power aimed at a specific outcome. And finally, media. The source presents media not as a source of information, but as the main delivery system for all these symbols and narratives. It's framed as a form of mass instruction that we participate in, often without our explicit consent. So how can we actually see this hidden code for ourselves? The source points us towards wordplay, not as a silly coincidence, but as something called structural disclosure. These little moments where the language itself seems to reveal its own internal wiring. Just take a look at this, silent and listen. They're made of the exact same letters, just rearranged. This isn't just a coincidence, it's like a circuit diagram. To truly listen, you have to be silent. One requires the other. The language itself is showing you the design. Or how about this one, earth and heart? You just shift one letter, and the outer world, our external ground, becomes the inner world, our internal ground. It's like the wordplay is revealing this deep connection, as without, so within. And think about sacred and scared. One simple letter changes, and suddenly awe and reverence turn into alarm and fear. The source calls this the threshold law, the idea that every doorway to something profound, something sacred, is guarded by fear. It's like a psychological map is hidden right there in the words. So the big point here is this. These aren't just clever tricks. They are these little glimpses behind the curtain,
these moments where the very architecture of meaning becomes visible to us if we just know how to look.
And here's the thing. Once you see this mechanism, once you start to understand the symbolic language it runs on, you can't really unsee it. The automation is broken. You are no longer just an unconscious indexer. You are now officially at a choice point.
And there are really only two paths forward from here. Option 1, you can just try to go back to sleep. Passive consumption, outsourced thinking, just letting the symbols and the headlines choose for you. Or there's option 2. You can decide to take back your sovereignty and become a conscious reality indexer. But this path, as the source points out, requires one thing above all else: integrity.
So if you choose that second path, how do you actually do it? This isn't about wishful thinking. It's about the practical engineering of your own attention and your own consciousness.
The source outlines 4 key steps. First, you withdraw your attention. Attention is your currency, so stop spending it on systems that profit from your fear and division. Second, practice symbolic integrity. That means speak what you mean and mean what you speak. Stop repeating ideas you don't actually believe in. Third, release the low-frequency loops, those emotions like resentment or chronic anger that are basically just poor indexing signals. And finally, you have to consciously choose the futures your mind rehearses day in and day out.
And it is so vital to understand this. This isn't about being a victim. No one actually stole your power. You just lent it out, unknowingly, by participating in a system you weren't even aware existed. And the good news is, now you can reclaim it.
And this is the final mechanical principle. Fundamental change, real change, isn't loud. It's not a violent overthrow. It's a quiet, individual revolution that happens when one person, and then another, begins to consciously choose what they select, what they reinforce, and what they build with their focus. It happens through re-indexing.
Which leaves us with the final question posed by the source material, a question for you. You've always been creating your reality. You can't not do it. So the only real choice you have now is this. Will you do it consciously, or will you continue to let someone else decide what you render next?